Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Capacity Conversations. We are two women from each coast of the United States having challenging dialogue about self-trust, transformation, and the reality most modern millennials are facing today. Do we actually have the capacity to do all the things that we want to do? If you're joining us for the first time, my name is Raquel Sands. I'm a clarity and work strategist supporting deep feelers, purpose-driven individuals who are not money motivated. So if you throw more money at the situation, it doesn't make you work harder, is kind of my people. And I help them create their own system, create their own path toward peace, purpose, and prosperity. My awesome, spectacular co-host, I will let her introduce herself.
Oh, I love hearing you introduce yourself. Your work is so fabulous to me. My name is Sarah Liljegren. I am happy to be here. I'm in the work of rewilding real estate. So I am a licensed real estate agent in the state of Washington, but also I've taken so many mindset courses and things in the real estate industry that they always talk about, like the most important real estate is the 8 inches between your ears. And so like the mind and the heart, like the real estate of our somatics is really kind of my work around feeling at home in who you are, but also your environment, your natural built space, and the community at large, and then, you know, all the layers in the bodies, like the earth. And that's why I smile and like, money is a big factor, but I think with speaking to millennials, sifting through all of the noise to like, what is true maybe is like part of what rewilding your home, rewilding your heart, rewilding your mind in my world, what that means.
100%. 100%. Yes.
In us.
I love that. No, I love that. And I guess to introduce today's topic, we pre-wrote our topics, I think about a year ago. We're coming up to a year. And so our topic for today, or this month, I should say, was faith. And faith, not necessarily capital F, organized religion, but kind of the inner compass, inner orientation. What does faith mean to us individually? And that could look different, I think, if we are participants of a certain religion. If we still interact with our own belief and system of hope and system of understanding differently than perhaps other people who share the same capital F faith. So I'll kick us off. I'll anchor it in my personal journey to kind of start with that. And then I will say that Sarah and I have a part 2 planned. So we want to look into religion, organized religion, specifically, I think the Abrahamic religion, because so much of Western culture are Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Islam, even though neither of us are Muslim, but just giving that, and then potentially Judaism as more to provide more context, I think maybe historically and getting it from those sources. So why faith, I guess, is important, talking about capacity, and why I think we put it as a thing in the first place. Because when there's a lot of things happening in how we have to make choices, money choices, home choices, how we're trying to operate and move in the world, there's so many unknowns and maybes. And I think faith, however we want to define that for ourselves, plays a big part in how we trust the unknown, how we take risk, and how we find ourselves in moments of despair. So I think faith is just this kind of common thread, this common denominator that can potentially carry us through all phases of life and all the different levels of capacity that we have to engage with as growing humans. So for me, I grew up Baptist, which is one denomination in the umbrella of Christianity, but there's many different, I would say, flavors of Baptist. I grew up in Southern Florida, and I went to Latin, like Cuban Baptist churches, and I also went to white Baptist churches. It was interesting because where I grew up, there was like a huge church building, temple, however you want to call that, where mostly white people would go, and it was only in English. And in the back, not to say that we had to be in the back, but we were just a smaller population. In the same kind of complex was the Spanish, um, more Cuban, because a lot of Southern Florida are a lot of Caribbean um, kind of ethnicities and cultures. And so I literally could choose which language or which version I wanted today. And it was great. I loved seeing, because I felt witnessed. I mean, I grew up in a Spanish speaking household, but I was born in the United States. So it really reflected my own personal identity and narrative. So on Sundays, we could kind of, okay, do you want to do Spanish today? And Spanish, we would have salsa, and they really made the worship in the rhythm, but it was still worship, and it was still beautiful. And
it sounds magnificent, by the way.
Joyful. I mean, I also loved, because then we went to the English sometimes. The music style was different, but I think across the board, I was always filled with peace, and there was this sense of serenity and community. I will say, when we would go in the Spanish, in the Cuban church, there would be a lot of yelling. There would be a lot of yelling, and just, I guess we could call it vigor and passion. And it would always crack me up. I have fond memories because my dad would notoriously fall asleep during the sermon, during the time of kind of whatever the pastor, the priest would want to come with for the message for the day. And, everybody's kind of nodding off because it's quiet. And then he, kind of explodes, and then, oh my God, okay. And so it was a fun, I had joy. I had joy. The parts that weren't joyous were the parts where I think little Raquel, there was so much beyond my comprehension. Talking about fear, the last chapter in the Bible, the apocalypse, talking about Jesus coming again, and those who are chosen and not chosen. I was just like, oh my God. And so I was filled with fear, instead of, I don't know, feeling that faith would carry me through. It felt that the fear would take over, and that there's this bad person, bad entity, Satan in this instance, always hovering, tempting with this thing. And so I remember we started taste testing other denominations. We were Pentecostals for a little bit. One of my aunts is Mormon. What was another one? I don't remember all of them, but there was a few, and it was interesting to see, like, we're all potentially saying the same thing. Like, we all believe in a certain entity, a certain doctrine, and yet the interpretation or the emphasis in certain things. And so that was kind of how my beginning of exploring faith, and what is happening that I can't see, that I can't control, that I don't know about, and yet there are things beyond my understanding. And that was kind of my orientation. Then when I went to high school and I moved up from Florida to Virginia, totally new culture, because I never had experienced Vietnamese food and like Asian cuisine in general, other parts of Latin America that weren't represented in Southern Florida, and exposed to yoga, Eastern philosophy. And so then my shape of faith and self-understanding developed. And I was like, okay, I don't identify with an external kind of force. I like a lot of indigenous wisdom that, like, God, spirit, whatever we want to call it, is in everything and everywhere. And so I liked, how do I say, like, God is in the trees, and in the wind. And I loved that because I'm like, I feel protected. I feel a part of something, not just something is watching me or hovering over me. That I have power as well as co-creator, as image of God, as someone part of the world. And so then I released, I think, organized religion, and I just embraced faith, just pure spirituality, or mysticism, whatever you want to call it. And I'm still there. I think I have a deep appreciation, and there's a tenderness for Christianity in general, because those were my roots. I still have a Bible at home. When I have friends, I have some friends who identify as Christian and not as spiritual. I love having conversations with them and talking about things from the Bible. And there's so much beauty in that. I think I'm at a place where it's not a fact for me. I feel like I don't know what I don't know. So I don't feel comfortable naming like God is a he when I don't like this divine sense could be without gender. And why should it be a he? And this maybe is more in the part 2 of kind of figuring out, dissecting organized religions. But I started to question, why is it that most major religions have male prophets, Muhammad and Jesus and Moses, and why are they all guys? And why aren't there enough stories about women? And the feminism piece started coming out a little bit. But that's not to say that I that took away from the beauty and the things that I really healed me and helped me. So so now I'm at the place, I'm 33. Sarah and I are same age, which is also really cool. And and I'm just at the place where I don't accept everything. I still filter through that lens of Christianity a bit, because that's kind of my backbone, the roots. I don't identify as a Christian. I don't go to church. I don't read the Bible. I do believe there was a Jesus, and I do believe in his acts and his rebelliousness and his fortitude and his role of prophesizing, seeing things that others couldn't. But I don't take that religion as my own anymore. And I identify as spiritual, because I'm like, I feel like spirit or divine is this limitless force that exists in everything, and I can't control it. I don't know what it is necessarily. Life is mysterious, and I'm okay with the mystery. Like, I think I'm at a place where it doesn't feel good to me to define that. And that goes with, I think, talking about our whole series, capacity, is like, is this one more thing I have to figure out and understand? Do I have the capacity to challenge my own faith? And like, that's its own thing, because there was a reckoning when I was in college of like, you know, okay, I grew up Christian, but now I have friends that are Buddhist, and I have friends that are Hindu, and I'm in yoga, and I'm, you know, what am I, and what is this? And that can be a lot, especially when, you know, life is lifing, like reality is hitting, and we got to pay our bills, and we got to find jobs. And, you know, I had a friend who was atheist, and we had long talks, and I was like, how could you not believe in something? Like for me, the struggle was in belief, not necessarily in the what. It was just having a sense of hope, or like attaching to something, because I'm like, you know, isn't it a comfort that in times of frustration that you're not alone? And it's not just the logical rationale. Like, there is a mystery, there is something that we can define however it feels comfortable and satiating for us, but there is something. And that I struggled so much with my friend. I was like, I love you, and you're challenging me in a good way.
and people believe in something regardless. I think I've mentioned in a previous episode, maybe not, but an anthropologist friend of mine, I asked one time, like, what is belief?
Yeah.
And I don't remember if that's how I asked it initially. And maybe I did, but he was like, I don't understand the question. And I was like, okay, from an anthropological perspective,
Yeah.
what is belief?
Yeah.
Because it seems to be this driving force. But we don't always actually enact what we say we believe. It's actually a much more mysterious force. And that's what I took away from his answer was that, like, it's not, okay, this is what I believe, this is what my faith tells me to believe, and this is what's true for me.
Right. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Exactly. Yeah. Because if we look at it, I'm not an evolutionary biologist. I do admire. I feel like in a past life, I'm like, that would have been so cool in evolution. Because the science, the theory behind evolution, that was also a challenge in and of itself. You're saying that we all come from monkeys, and that actually we all, like, everything came from fish, and like, where's God in this? And science challenges God. I like to follow this physicist Neil Tyson deGrasse, or I think I'm pronouncing his name right. And he said Neil thank you, exactly. Thank you, exactly. And he said in one of his videos that like 99% of scientists are atheists. That they did a study, the more education, getting into college, doctorate, like going the full 9 yards, the whole thing, the more that they became atheist, or like even if they were religious. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. But he said that what is also interesting, if we inverse that, is that there is still a 1% of scientists that do hold on to their faith, even potentially knowing, quote unquote, the science and the rationale. And that's just interesting for me to think of. I like to think about these things because I'm like, there is something human about needing faith, and I feel like all cultures in all parts of the world have had something, and it's definitely changed. I would talk to my AI about, why is it that we have patriarchal religions where there's a man at the top? What happened to the matriarchies? Or why is it that, like, the pagan, where we have more of, I would think, representation of the goddess? What happened to those cultures? And a lot of what AI would give back to me is, oh, well, the industrial revolution hit, and well, even before that, when society started evolving, people were no longer nomads or no longer in tribes and living within the cycle and seeing like the sun and the moon and honoring all these different aspects of life. It became, you have a lord, you have a prince, you have a king, and all of these sort of hierarchies started to, that man-made, started to create also the overlap with religion and faith and all these other structures. So all of that is to say that I think faith, as it in and of itself, like peeling it back from whatever we think it is, like just at the core, I think it's just this deep need, human need, because I don't know if other animals do that like we do, doing sacrifices of time, or back in the day, people would do sacrifices of animals in honor of what they thought was true. So there's this element of sacrifice, and there's this element of putting ourselves, the ego, the whatever, who we are, aside in service of something greater. And yeah, I don't see elephants. I don't understand elephants or whales in that way, but who's to say that they don't have, I don't know.
What do you mean, like the elephant, like they don't make the sacrifice for their future? What aspect of like they wouldn't understand why we would do that?
I guess I don't know if they have faith in the same way that we have faith.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, there is something very also there's like a universal law around sacrifice to me at this point, because
Okay.
like
Okay.
I have way, and there is like, I think I'm starting to realize for myself, like there's some level of maturity to how do I put down all of my ideas in service to a few of my good ones that I can actually execute in my lifetime. And
Mm,
there was a small example, but like there was an event going on in my area. I live in Spokane-ish, and it was in July or June, and I wanted to do that thing, and I wanted it so bad for months. I've been thinking, that's the thing I'm going to do next summer. That's the thing I'm going to do next summer for months, like since last September, literally. And the dates came around and the dates changed or something. And I started thinking about it so much, and I was like, I don't think I should do that thing because some very good reasons. And then I kind of let go of it in a weird way where I was like, I just have to say no sometimes. Like I have to tell myself that maybe that doesn't fit with the grander plan for these reasons. And I kind of let it go. And the same, like the next day, a better opportunity, a like similar but different opportunity came up in a way, like this little like faith, lowercase f, is what I was thinking. I thought of that example this week when knowing that this conversation was coming, because I was like, it's odd how this subtle belief that things will work out sometimes is what leads to things working out.
100%.
And I wonder if that's kind of what we're talking about. But I
100%.
enjoy like hearing your background of faith and where it's like, how it's evolved for you. That's really
Yeah, I think at the core for me, it was this aversion of fear. I think at the core, because the way that I was taught the Bible, it was very much like you have a hero and you have a villain. And the villain is Satan, and he had his story. And I think I told you, and I told another friend, I'm reading the Quran for the first time in English, and so it's not the official Quran because the official is in Arabic and I don't speak Arabic.
Well, we're not reading the Bible in Greek either, so
No, exactly, thank you, exactly. And just the different understanding, interpretation of Satan for them, or in that book, that I'm understanding as someone who has Muslim friends, but not anywhere near. I mean, I'm not an expert. I don't know anything about that. And so just the way that I was taught, there was so much fear around, don't do this, don't do that, and God is watching, like Big Brother, like 1984 type thing. And so there was this element of Jesus and salvation, but it felt overshadowed by these two other polarities. And I'm like, I just don't want to be afraid. I don't want to feel fear of my faith, and that I can't operate that way. I don't like, I'm already I mean, if we're gonna get really brass tacks, I'm already a small, curvy, brown girl in the US, not feeling safe within my community sometimes, not feeling identified by my own people, my own family. Like, I have enough fear to deal with. I didn't feel comfortable with my body. I grew up fast. Having a nice butt is nice, but feeling shamed by a doctor because I'm small and I grew up too fast and I had to diet. Like always seeing my parents work, and I'm very grateful. We never missed meals or anything, but just the constant fear in life. And then I'm like, and so I just say that because I think that really shaped how I left Christianity. And I still love and have loved, but it's just, I think I have a deep sense of no one can control how I'm orienting and understanding. I don't even know. So why would this other structure thing that has had so many other layers and translations, and not just Christianity or like Baptist itself, but just religion. Like, there's so many different flavors of like Baptist is one thing, and it's like 1,000 different interpretations depending on where in the South you go and which culture. And so I'm just like, I don't want to be controlled. I just want, and that's also true to my work. Like, I don't want to control how people make money. I don't want to tell anybody you have to stay in a 9 to 5 if it's killing you inside, if it's draining you, and you can't do what you feel called to do or what will actually help you. So, anyways, I think that was the biggest thing that has and continues to shape. But I am a big person of faith. Like, I feel like we can't live without having that drive. So yeah, so I struggled with my atheist friend just because I was like, you also that that phrase, you believe in science, and I'm like, so you believe, you have a belief.
So that's interesting that was their chosen belief, because it is like, after getting a science degree, I left the church basically at the same time I was going to college to get a science degree. And so there was, I could see the way that, like, even within myself, that faith could be supplanted by something that on paper makes a lot more sense. It is not judging me. It is ideally all about rationality, or like just weighing the facts. But also, the unfortunate thing I got to see at that time was the peek behind the curtain on what, like, how the scientific method in the United States, particularly, how most of the research, no, I shouldn't say most, maybe most, but a lot of the research that gets done in the United States as far as nutrition and medicine goes is in service to its marketability and selling a product, or influencing the way a corporate entity, their products are seen in the marketplace.
That's right.
Everything from, supplement companies to chemical companies to seed companies. Monsanto actually was a big sponsor of the food and nutrition industry, and probably still is, but a lot of who they fund ends up going towards research about things like GMOs. And that's the science that then college students are taught. And how we were taught to, like, frame the whole industry was based on this golden standard of research. And even now it's so funny how the golden standard is, I think we're still super split. As a nation of, like, there's a lot of people who believe that gold standard of research is sacred, and that nothing else even, like, holds up to a good, like, double blind placebo trial, or whatever, like, the gold standard is for whatever type of research you're dealing with. And then other people are like, you can kind of, like me to some degree, a little more, like, you can adjust your data however you want to display or not, right? I was actually on a research team, the research hospital, where, like, we got grants to do this certain project, and we did it, and we saw the data, and we were like, meh, it's not really what I'm sure the data was still published, but maybe not to the, like, we didn't use it to the purpose of what the grant was for, because we don't want to market it. It's all about marketing and presentation and sharing it to a certain end. And on the flip side of that, the faith is, like, for me, the ability to the end and the purpose of the faith that gets me through the day is to anchor myself in my reality, so that I can choose what I have the capacity to do or not do. And I actually wrote that down, like, do I have the capacity to challenge my own faith? Because that, I think, is such a big question. I mean, the aversion to fear is so real. It's the same reason I walked away. And I think, I love hearing your story on this, and everyone's relationship to this, to faith, because I have had such an interesting windy journey to it myself as well. Like, and starting out as a fundamentalist, going full witch mode, and now I'm somewhere in between.
Yes.
Like the animism, like you said, like the believing that there is life and spirit in the trees and the rocks. And
Yeah.
sometimes I don't want to call myself an animist out of fear of the persecution from the Christians because they don't like animism, it seems like. But there's also a spiritual Christianity that in the deep, I don't know, what I see is kind of like a revival of Christian culture in the United States right now. I think there's a lot of, with all the light that's coming forward, that's also going to bring a lot of shadow too. And so I see a lot of potentially scary things happening, but what I would like to see with that light, the rise of the voice of spiritual Christians who aren't dogmatic, who are able to say publicly, like the Holy Spirit is in the wind. It's in the small conversation between neighbors as they walk by each other. It's in the food, the herbs growing in my garden right there. Like
100%.
I feel like more Christians believe that than can speak about. And some of the very fundamentalist people that raised me were actually very clear behind closed doors. Like, yeah, we can believe that, but we don't preach that from the pulpit. And so it's this weird control and power thing like that. I think, I mean, you talk about women in the church. That's one reason I like Jesus, is because Jesus was radical at the time because he had women with him. That's why I think Mary Magdalene's such a big part of the story, because the Pharisees were like, he has women in his group. And Mary was like, he respects me.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
So I think there's just more, like you said, we don't know. And I for a long time didn't want to look at my Bible, and I have this year, and I in studying too. I mean, this is our first recording on a Sunday, and so I'm actually going to leave this recording to go to church to learn about Babylon, because that's what we're studying in Scripture now, and the prophecy. So the Revelation, the last book of the Bible, I didn't realize was so related to the prophecy from Daniel's prophecy. So that's why we're reading Daniel first to understand the prophecy. And it's kind of crazy. Like Babylon, people talk about, I'm just kind of rambling now, I guess.
No, you're good. Please. No, you're good. Please. At least I'm engaged. I love it.
Files is what's going on right now. And we always talk about topical things that are happening in the world. And that being released, I mean, I remember when I first watched that documentary a few years ago, whenever it came out, and before Ghislaine Maxwell ever went to, I don't know, has she been arrested? I don't know. Did she? I'm not tracking all the details, because I actually am not reading the files. Like some of the articles I'm reading are people going into the files. I'm not doing that. I'm seeing their clips, and I just don't want to fill my mind with more of it. Because even I'm kind of the opinion, I mean, Justin, my husband's like, hey, so-and-so's on trial for this. And I'm like, they're just, again, I'm working on my pessimism, but my thought is kind of like, they're just going to choose whose heads roll and who gets to stay in power behind closed doors. That's all they're doing. They're just, I feel like they're just going to choose who has to go to jail for the rest of their life. And the other people who don't, you know, maybe have more money, have more influence, whatever it is. Like send the old ones to jail to die, and the young ones with all the legacy. And I don't know. That just sounds crazy, but it is crazy. I mean, we have a satanic death cult that's related to like ancient. They talk about ancient Babylon, and the reason I brought all that up is because Babylon wasn't even like a global power. It wasn't. It wasn't a society. It was kind of like a clan of people that won a war and then got a lot of power. And King Nebuchadnezzar, I mean, I'm still, like I said, learning this stuff, so I'm not gonna go deeper into it. But you know, God gave him power, and then God took away his power. And I think, you know, it was in a moment of like, your power is left from you. And then he went and lived like a cow, like a bovine, for like years, which is an actual thing. Like people just randomly turning into animals like is an actual psychological thing in psychiatry. So I'm like, it's funny to put together like
Okay, hold it. I'm gonna hold it together.
like I know like the what are curses and what are mysteries and what are miracles, and also like the way that they overlap with, that's kind of what anchors me. Like that's the lowercase f in faith to me is like I can learn all of that stuff in religion and history and look out at the world and be like, it's still here. Like people are still people. And if I can center myself and just keep learning with love in my heart, like maybe I could put the pieces together
100%.
and be okay, you know, but there's so much overwhelm right now in the world that we're all
100%.
freaking tired.
So what you just said, literally, we were talking about it yesterday because so my family is from El Salvador, and it's been in the press that, you know, we have this, some people on the political, I think, left here in the United States on the left will say he's a dictator and he's trying to control. And then the people on the right who are more conservative leaning and stuff will say he's doing a great job. You know, he's controlling his people. He's, I don't know, his tactics are fine. And, you know, from my family who are living and breathing in that experience, okay, 20 years of war in that country. Now, all of Latin America has been colonized by Spanish, Portuguese, and French. I just found out, because I'm not in the know like that, France is still making billions of dollars from their former colonized African countries, about $540 billion. And it's crazy the way the guy was explaining it, because when certain African countries fought, they're like, okay, we want to be independentized and we want to leave, and you know, that's it. France had them sign a contract. I don't know all the details, but what I understand, they signed a contract where whatever they export still has to go to France, and then when they import things, they have to buy back their own thing that they put out. So I'm just like, you know, when like talking about belief and faith, I'm like, whoo, I'm going to church. I'm sorry, I'm going to be on a pedestal for a little bit. It bothers me like I feel like we do a good job on this podcast of holding two things at the same time, and as a woman of color, I don't like to think of myself as a victim. Like, I'm not here to say the system is skewed. Like, there is real evidence and things of education system, work system, like generational wealth. Like, we can talk about all those things, and those are facts. And at the same time, I don't like to see myself through that lens of like poor me, and because I feel like then I'm already believing a narrative in myself that I don't believe in myself. That's not to say that there aren't harsh realities in life, but that could be the same for a vast majority of things. Like, I also don't know what it is to have a neurodivergence or physical handicap. I'm not comparing all of these things. I'm just saying that I don't like to like wallow in in the things that the world doesn't support me in or like doesn't see me in. And I struggle with this. I'm a part-time career counselor at a local nonprofit for minority, like literally for Black and brown communities, youth. Some are refugees, some are literally I have to figure out their legal situation to go to community college. They have to go and update their passport because they don't have a driver's license, because the state of Virginia or the state of Maryland doesn't license those out. So it's just all of these things, systemic things that whatever political administration can, you know, monopolize and change and whatever, and that we have to go through, that people have to go through to do the same step. of taking one community class out of their pocket, but now it's out of state fee because of how they are identified. So I feel like going back to the El Salvador thing and all of this stuff of belief, it's like it's potentially easier to see things surface level as one thing. And, and seeing it from the vantage point that like I currently have. I feel like I try to straddle. I feel like I'm always in limbo because I'm not an immigrant. So I don't know what that experience. I know my husband, he's an immigrant. All my family are immigrants, but I'm not. And so I can't speak to the realities of like, why did they leave their country? And I only know from history that there was a civil war in El Salvador, and it was on both sides. Like the US had a part to play because it has a part to play in every country, Venezuela, and like all the things, and it's like, but the people in that country are trying to do something for themselves. And so it's like there was a war for 20 years, many people died, and people left. They left because their home is being bombarded and fear and despair. And where are we going to go? The place, unfortunately, that was fueling on one side that same war. And for people in this country to have an opinion, not to say that we can't have an opinion, but I'm just like, it's hard to say from whatever side of the political spectrum, like, this is the belief, this is the truth, this is what we feel about that thing, and how it could potentially affect us, or what that says about us and our democracy and what we believe about democracy. And I'm just like, whoa, like democracy is an ideal, just like people talk about communism and all these things. But in actuality, like, again, lowercase f and capital F. I feel like there's the internal, what I feel and what I have faith on, versus how it's actually executed or what people conceptualize about it. And that's why I don't call myself a Christian or anything, because I feel like the moment I label it, all these other things come, like people want to associate things with that. Yeah. And it's so, for me, it's it triggers a lot, because I'm just like, yes, I am a child of Salvadorian immigrants, and we're not 100% in favor of what the president Bukele is doing. But do we prefer it than having millions of gang members that were deported from LA jails to the US, to El Salvador, and now it's just this place that people are dumping their criminals and stuff. And I'm just like, it's another country trying to do its best. Like, people are trying to do our best. I think from what it was to now, people going, oh, let's go to Surf City. I was just in El Salvador. I'm like, holy shit, yeah, fuck yeah. Like, give this place some sovereignty, give it a little bit of agency. And I think for me, that's what faith is agency of ourselves, to trust ourselves, to trust our capacity, to unburden ourselves. I do have two caveats: as long as your faith doesn't hurt you or someone else. But other than that, I'm like, you know what? Go hug a tree, man. Like, go smoke some weed, like go do some yoga. Like, I'm totally fine with, finding ways, because we're human.
New pathways. Like, that's when you say like go hug a tree and smoke some weed. I just think so many religious people would be like, no.
Why not?
but that's, it kind of clicked as you were speaking just now, like the capital F and uppercase F, or wait, capital and lowercase, between the types of faith we're discerning here. It's kind of like the inner game and outer game. And that's this aspect to embodiment, or like, I guess I learned the practice through Evolve Move Play, which I have mentioned before, but they do a lot of movement games and workshops and stuff. And the whole time we're doing these games, you know, the coaches are like, okay, inner game is this. Here's the outer game. Here's the rules we're going to play. This is the outer game. And, you know, every other place you go to where you're like doing group work, they're like, okay, here's the rules. Here's what we're going to do. Never, ever, ever have I heard like walking through these practices and games with a reminder like, hey, there's an inner game going on too. And it just kind of clicked now as we're talking about this, literally just now, like, oh, there is, I forget what you said, but like discerning within yourself, or like, yeah, well, you want to learn all of the things that are going on outer faith wise, but that inner faith, you can still, I think that's what's so maybe is so scary about like the fundamental religions that kind of leave no room for that inner wondering,
Right.
and really want to take that outer faith and say that's your inner faith too, and all those subtle messages, like not like beyond the text from the book, all of those human sub messages that get woven in there, like women are less than. I as a 33-year-old now, I really don't know where that came from in the Bible. I mean, the women keep silence in the church, that was taken way too literally. And like the help meet, women being a help, or I forget what some of the language.
Yeah. Like a helper, or like
yeah, but it's not really like a helper. Gosh, beneficial no, yeah. Or maybe that's what Satan is. Gosh, I don't know. Beneficial adversary maybe is one of the translations, but it has that kind of antagonistic quality to it, where like we are here to kind of edify, and that's the purpose of the church ideally, is to edify each other, to like learn how to support each other and become better people. And I think the power dynamics and the hierarchies that just humans fall into everywhere gets really lost in translation, because now I'm like, women in the church are rad. Like I never ever went to a church where a woman had a leadership position. That was a huge no in our sect of Christianity. Extreme modesty, no or clap. Like we would joke about like how sinful it was to like clap or dance in services. You talk about like the Cubans yelling, like having more vocal in church. Like I remember as a girl, African American women of faith.
Yeah.
I thought, I want to be a sassy, faithful Black Christian woman. Like,
oh, I love
wanted
that.
more than anything, because that inner faith to me was so loud. I nowadays I talk about how I have a loud soul. She's just always screaming at me from inside, and
Love it.
I wanted it to be outside too. I wanted my church and my faith to not be so strict, not have this like scared white people body. Like I don't know what that is, and I want to learn more about that too. But there is, I mean, the names that we've given it is as far as racism in America goes, like that white frozen, like I don't know if it's like not all white people's ancestors were oppressors, but I think modern white people have the embodied fear of being one regardless. And so we still are, I'm finding it within myself of and I'm also studying history more. I'm trying to study my genealogy more. And I just found this cool book that I think I mentioned it last time, that we were, my family was around in the current United States way longer than before it was a country. So what is that, you know, and then during that time, you know, actually the colonies were the place that they dumped criminals. It was the New World. It was just the wilderness. Like we don't care about that land, so that's where we're going to send the criminals, because it's just it's we choose it to do it to anywhere. It's just so interesting that the oppressor becomes the oppressee, and the oppressee becomes the oppressor, and like this human disconnection to maybe the lowercase f of like,
I think so,
that inner good versus evil can be so swayed by external forces. And before long, you don't have the capacity to actually question your own belief system, because I mean, we're living in a time now where like extremism is really, really popular.
Oh.
I think one of my big desires just with this project and more is to try to be a voice for maybe the white Christians who were like, enough of this. Like, there's just this, especially with like this weird Christian revival, the shadow of what that could mean for certain communities. I think people don't fully grasp what could happen, because like you said earlier, like you said at the beginning, the reason you left or don't want to go back was the same reason I did, that overwhelming sense of fear. I think there's just a better way to have that conversation, because you notice that the revival happened after Charlie Kirk's murder.
Wow. Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I'm seeing kind of, is like, I just see Turning Point everywhere now. Everywhere. They just have their own Super Bowl halftime show. What
I know.
actual fuck? Like, what kind of propaganda is that? Like, I'm not saying it's not a good thing. I think people having their own celebration or seeing the good, I just don't know why the division, like, to see that play out in less than a year. I'm like, wow, like seeing that we have 2 Super Bowl halftime shows now. It's like the second biggest or first biggest like gathering in our country, and they just stoked the division so hard. And so like they're giving this certain flavor of Christianity a voice and a presence now that I think is just emboldening them. And it was weird too that it was Bad Bunny, and like so many of the, I don't know why I'm talking about that. I did not watch either one. I just saw like certain clips of like the beautiful culture that Bad Bunny brought to it. And then I don't even know, whatever. People just loved the Turning Point. That was their own thing. They just loved that was like the clean, respectful thing that America needs. And it's like, hey, the fact that everyone just picked a side and defended their own side, I'm like, that it's working real well. Whatever.
Oh man,
imbalance is going. So I want to be a.
You're good. Yeah. No, I mean, talking as a Latina, like I don't identify as like a marginalized person. I don't operate mentally, emotionally in that way. And so, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. She's in her 40s. She's got a son. She identifies as Christian. In her words, a hippie Christian, because she loves camping, and they like, she's just out in like Tennessee, Asheville, and it's I love that area. A lot of nice mountains and things. And the one thing that like I think she would identify as like a trad wife or something, traditional wife, I think they call it. And so she doesn't work. The husband is the provider, the sole provider. That's not to say that she doesn't work in other ways, just she doesn't bring home the financial bacon. And like, I find myself, and we talk about that with my husband, I wasn't brought up in a household like that. Both my parents worked, everyone in my family worked. And I'm talking like 2 jobs sometimes, each person. So now to think about like, what do I believe about money? What is my relationship to prosperity in such a way that like just now, I mean, we're 2 years married, but we're 10 years together as a partnership with my husband, with my partner. And we just now are bringing together our finances. Like, it was always like, he's independent, I'm independent, and we both like our independence, and we both contribute, but it's not one thing. And now we are discovering for ourselves, what does it mean to really believe in each other's like capacity to sustain the house, and not just the literal things got to get done, but like what we want this home to be. I love cooking. It's not just because I'm a woman. I mean, it could be, but I genuinely, I love nourishing others. And so now when I'm at home, because I just have a part-time job, and I changed my belief around enoughness, how much is enough to contribute and enough to show up at work and all these things, and challenging that structure. That now I made sweet potato brownies. I make these lentil stews now, and I just like all of that is to say that I wouldn't have identified as a traditional wife, and we have conversation about kids, and I'm like, yeah, for sure they're not going to daycare. Like that's not something in my belief system. I was a kindergarten teacher, and the way that microcosm of the education system, like 30 kids, 30 little babies to 1 or 2, and then we have to call somebody to go to the bathroom, and it's just outrageous. So I wouldn't want my babies in that. And I do take on, like, I would say some traditional quote unquote traditional structures, because that feels good for me. I don't know if in my 20s I would have resonated, but all of that is to say that that's why I think lowercase f for me is like this playfulness. Like I don't know necessarily what that clear definition is, because I change. Like my needs change, the cycles change, my relationship with my husband and others. And because I'm open, I strive to be open to hear even people who maybe I don't agree with, but I'm like, oh, I learned something from that, or I do resonate with something, maybe not everything. And so anyways, all of that is to say that, like, I think that's why internal faith is so precious, because it helps navigate, like, going back to work and stuff. Like, okay, work isn't my identity, because it's just a means to an end. And however I choose that to be, I do have faith that things will work out. Like what you said, that isn't it amazing that when we like mentally release something, or it does. And that for me, that is faith. And so it's mysterious and it's beautiful. And I just going back to the Bad Bunny and everything, I'm just like, I didn't realize like the unconscious, or the shadow, like all the things that this country had. Like if you ask my friends, I have friends from Egypt and Somalia and, like, colonized cultures, they would have never said America is white. Like everybody comes here because it's a melting pot.
Right.
And so I knew it was white because I was born here. And so like, it's just interesting, the marketing of the USA externally. Like when I talk to my husband's family in Peru, they're like, are you guys in like lawns and have houses and like movie type stuff? And there's an idealized, again, maybe with capital F, there's an idealized faith version, and then there's actually the real kind of messy playfulness. And so I'm constantly like, wow. So for me, it was a bit heartbreaking that there even was another halftime show thingy, because I'm like, whether people speak Spanish or like it, even Spanish speakers don't all like Bad Bunny. Like,
I wasn't even sure. I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe I've heard Bad Bunny music on the radio. I don't know. Have I?
You're good.
I don't know.
Yeah. I find it interesting, the like USA doesn't even want to look at its own shadow. Like the thing with Puerto Rico and other territories of the US, and that can be said about even the marginalized communities and all of that, like not wanting to embrace itself. And I think that could be, I don't know, maybe I'm overlapping things, but I think that for me speaks to, like, if we don't want to look at something within ourselves and do shadow work, And then it's like, again, the capacity of questioning our faith and questioning our sanity, questioning what's right, what's wrong. And I feel like the US is in that of like,
Yeah.
who are we really? And what is it that
Yeah.
we believe? And what is it that we're trying to say? And I try to be a voice of, I feel like I'm moderate to left leaning. I'm definitely more progressive because I want people to have rights, even though I don't understand putting it out there. Like trans people, and I've said that before, not because I don't want them to live their life. I don't get it. Oh, the thing that you reminded me about the animals. We talked with my husband about, there's this thing called Therians that young adults identify, and it came up because President Bukele in El Salvador, he's like banning them. He doesn't want teenagers to identify as animals, literally wearing masks and jumping around on all fours and everything. I didn't know this was a thing. And like, just because I don't understand it doesn't mean that it's not, like, it can't have its own space, its own safe space to play around with. And I was reading some psychology articles last night about it, and like, when we're young, we're trying to identify, we don't know who we are.
Right.
And so, you know, I just say all that because it's just messy, and faith is messy. So okay.
Yeah, I have two things. I think it's interesting. Like, we want to respect what we don't understand. And as much as good people want trans people to have rights,
Yeah.
which rights are good. And it's funny too, because growing up in, I identify as heavy moderate, like too moderate. But I also probably lean more right because I grew up in a very Republican conservative culture. And some of the gifts of that were to see like where I don't align. And I love that you described like the lowercase faith as like this inner playfulness, because I think that's exactly what the inner game is about when trying to decipher what your faith is. You have the outer faith, you have these systems that you get to choose from. And I think that's kind of the beauty of the melting pot of America, is that you should have all these different things you can choose from. You should have the ability to go back and forth. And at the same time, things like options at the Super Bowl, I think like gave permission for people to look away. It gave that culture that I was raised in permission to not, I mean, so many people were offended by the Spanish. And I'm like, why? Like, what? Like, because they think America is white, because that's kind of this founding notion. I wish I had this book for Valentine's Day. Justin gave me this book called Wagons West, because but I don't know if I've mentioned here, like, I'm obsessed with the Oregon Trail, the California Trail, the Santa Fe Trail, like the history of how the West was colonized, how it was founded. Because, when we got our independence, we were just colonies on the East. And I'm a Midwest girl, and so I was born and raised in flyover country. The coasts were what America was. The United States was about the coasts. No one cared about the breadbasket. That's what they called us, flyover country.
Wow.
And yeah, so where am I going with that? Why did I bring that up? Humanity. Oh, because what we don't understand is still something we're afraid of. It's funny because it's like what I'm trying to get at is kind of folding in on itself, because even the coasts want to ignore the flyover country and that perspective, which is mostly Republican perspective. Democratic cities, I mean, the United States very often is like a swath of red with like dots of blue. And so you have this automatic like back and like cultural divide, and what can fan the flames there. Oh my gosh, I had another train of thought and I forgot what it was. Animals, nature. Okay, so and it goes back to more from the nature connection in my mind, because just this disconnection from what is true, that inner playfulness, that like you are allowed to change, you are allowed to hear that other perspective and to respect it and still choose your own opinion. You're allowed to do all that. Like, that's kind of in my mind what America was about. And it's not at all what I've grown up to embody what the United States actually feels like. That is not at all what I thought it was as a kid. I thought we were a melting pot. I thought I could be friends with a Black girl and things were going to be like there weren't this undercurrent of stuff. But there was. And growing up and maturing and seeing that not only are we a melting pot, but we are so divided to like miss each other's truth that I wonder if more. I think that's one reason I chose to dive into what the culture that raised me called social justice warrior stuff. And I just love social justice issues because it brings that to the forefront. It brings all of those conversations into the you and me. Like, we should be able to talk about why trans people deserve rights and where is the line, because kids identifying as animals, in my book, you should know your animal forms. Kids should know what a slug moves like, what a monkey moves like. Like, they should be able to see this and embody it and feel it, and adults encourage it without taking it on, without it becoming their capital F faith, their whole identity in their outer world, because humanity is a gift. And to me, it goes back to, we don't really believe that. We believe we're the scourge of the earth and that we should be eradicated. But I think that's maybe where it kind of, the line in the sand comes down to me is giving other humans, like children, permission to exit humanity by being an animal, giving I love, to be honest, I go back, I don't know, I'm going to say it anyway, to give like the Turning Point USA community its own Super Bowl is giving you permission to look away, to give I think in some ways, like, just giving people what they want, like giving kids everything they want. Any parent knows that that's not a good plan. That's not a good marketing plan.
Nobody's not that either.
Like, marketing, like a parenting plan.
It's not that either.
And so it's, I don't know. The inner game for me, for faith is, and I struggle with this regularly, of like, how can I be a good person? How can I be a better person? And acknowledging the hard things. I think is we just need more space for that. And we don't actually have the time or capacity. Most of us don't.
No, right.
And we have to cram it in the moments that we're already exhausted, and it's just not a good space to be in. I think the more differing opinions we can put around a campfire, the better.
Yes, 100%.
That's what I'm doing with my life.
Yes, exactly. No, exactly. And that's why I'm like, well, I wanted to say before I lose the thought, is I feel like there was this thing, I don't know if it's still happening, but I remember when my husband and boyfriend, we were dating, he's much more brown than I am. And he would say, where he was living at, kind of also Peruvians, the lady would say, I hope that you date like a white lady, or I hope that you date someone with clear skin, because it'll help the race, it'll help us. And I say that because I feel like there's an element of self-hate or like self-dismissal in, I don't want to speak for all Black and brown communities, but I'll just speak for the community that I'm a part of. And I say that because, like, going back to the USA, or like talking about the USA and the self-dismissal of the beauty of what it is. Like, I watch Emily in Paris. I watch this other show, my friend from Egypt, and it's all about this single mom who, in Egyptian culture, that's kind of like a no-no. And she wants to be this entrepreneur in Egypt, in Alexandria. And so I watch different types of shows, and I don't understand the languages. And, you know, there is beauty in when I see Italy and I see these countries that are very much, we know ourselves, we know our history, we know our food. And I feel like it's kind of poo-pooed on, oh, well, USA is just fucking burgers and fucking this, and burgers are German, and this. I'm like, even again, just to talk about my personal life, I'm a part-time career counselor. The other career counselor is Salvadorian. He's a Salvadorian immigrant. And I was like, oh, wow, I've never in my working experience worked with somebody like that. Because I've only worked with white people, white, Black people, and some kind of other Latinas, but we were the minority. And he has such a different framework. He's very much like, go El Salvador and go this and go that. And I'm like, and so he'll poo-poo on USA stuff. And I'm like, but you came here and I was born here and I love fucking burgers and, corn dogs and everything. Like, one thing can be true and another thing can be true. Like, we don't need to dismiss someone else so that we can feel good about ourselves, or we don't need to shun something that is potentially like the beauty of that. Like, for me, the beauty of US is that we are a melting pot and that there is no national language. It's in the Constitution. Like, Christianity is everywhere, but it's practiced in so many different ways, and you have freedom of religion here. And I'm like, that is what I'm proud of, the openness. And it's scary because we're trying to tame the openness. We're trying to control what, how things should be. But I think the whole point of USA is like possibility and limitless, and you can do it if you just hustle, and you can be whatever you want to be. And it's just like, I feel like going back to how I started with like this self-dismissal, like even in Latin American countries, they get so stuck on their own geography. This is Bolivia, this is this. And I'm like, we were all colonized and we all speak Spanish, and nobody speaks their original dialect, Quechua or Nahuatl or anything. We have lost our own identity to become this Spanish identity. And we all have kind of the same color flags. Like, if you look at all Central America, it's all blue and white. If you all look at South America, it's all yellow and green in some variety. And I'm just like, we're losing the context. We're losing the I don't know if this is the capital F now, but it's like we're losing the bigger point because we're fighting over like how we want to play, how we want to express, how we want. And I'm like, wow. So it's like, where's the faith at all, lowercase or uppercase? And it just boggles my mind because I'm just like, it repeats, because then, the colorism in our communities happens, the division of faith. Like, Catholicism is so everywhere in Latin America, but some people are I don't know, completely, like the extremes, completely rejecting it or completely embracing it, and then there's no middle ground, there's no middle way. And I don't know. All of that is to say that I'm like you, big proponent of the playfulness, and it's scary to me when I saw about the Therians. I was like, oh my God, are the kids now identifying as animals? Like, oh no. But then I took it back and I was like, but they need to play. Like, there is no time. And it's really, I think that for me is the heartbreaking thing, that we're all just kids with PTSD and all sorts of stuff. And it's just like, we're not healed, and then we get thrown into all this other stuff. So we're definitely lowercase f. Yeah.
Wounded children who are forced to grow up because that's what we do, but there's no emotional maturing, that there's no container for holding this level of complexity, because when we're treated like cattle. I mean, I all public school for me, baby. That's and like, I look back and I'm like, I feel like I became such a big proponent of alternative education before and during COVID, especially during COVID. That's why I was like, this is the silver lining, folks. And nowadays it's true. 6 years, almost 6 years after all that started to break down, and now I see it everywhere, pulling people pulling their kids out of public school,
Yes.
for whatever reason, whatever side of the extremism we fall on. And I just have to say, and this is kind of a tangent, but I kind of alluded to this earlier, but as a white girl in rural Christian America, I really did. I feel like I have to be careful on how I say this, because like I said, I wanted to be a Black, sassy Christian woman, because in the grocery store, these women would just talk to me and very openly say things like, "Oh, I'll be praying for you," and just we're so much more open than my family was, or any semblance of what I thought I could be. And it's so cool to hear you say like that's that the melting pot, or the idea of what America could have been, the myth of the melting pot. I think that's even a book, like, it was a good social experiment. It's failing in a lot of ways, but there's this silver lining that we all actually can come together and acknowledge and pull out. Like, if I were in a family or a community that were more diverse, maybe we could have had more cross-pollination with each other in a way that allowed us to take on each other's embodiments and or cultures or acceptance in a degree that wasn't, as a girl, this like level of awe, which is kind of weird to look back on, because like I actually was so uncomfortable in my skin, not just because of its color, but because of what the prison that I felt like we couldn't be expressive in the same way. Makes sense. And I also didn't know America was white. And I think we've talked about this before, until I was older and was like, oh, yeah, that culture I was raised in absolutely thinks that the country is just white. Which is silly, but that goes back to like, we just need more cross-pollination and people with differing stories and experiences and 100%. Beliefs and values to come together with the space. And it's unfortunate because the spaces we've gone to where that kind of that societal I hate not societal, but like that's practice. They have that ability to blend societies or cultures is just a more liberal thing. So like I think I'm liberal than I realize, because I'll often say something and Justin will will kind of point out like, no, like we're a liberal generation. Like we might have been raised very conservative, but we have a very liberal mindset, kind of just because of the generation we're in. And millennials
100%
are a beautiful bridge. That's why I love the focus on millennials for the capacity conversations, because our generation, I saw a wonderful clip yesterday. I think I even sent it to you on Instagram.
You did. I loved it. I loved it.
I don't know who that guy is. I didn't know him, but he breaks down very beautifully that our grandparents were the Great Depression babies. And they raised our parents who, it was not about emotions. It wasn't about emotional connection. That's really a newer thing in psychology, family development, is 100%. Emotionally connecting with your kids. So the gentle parenting movement, I think, is an extreme answer to that. And I mean, there's pros and cons to all of it. But millennials are maybe the first generation in everyone who's alive on the planet right now who was born into a time where it was okay to access your emotions. It was actually safe. We weren't living in World War II. We weren't living out the Great Depression. We weren't, even Vietnam. Like we weren't even around for that trauma. Not just the men who were coming back with those horrible stories, but like the way us as a country hated them for it too. Like the media just scared them, and we still don't treat our vets well, I think. But we're the first generation who maybe can see that. Also, us as soldiers is an interesting thing, because this is the first time in history that most young people, not most, I don't remember the stat, but like a lot of people our age can't even get through boot camp, or like younger than us. Like our ability to be soldiers is going down.
Yeah.
And somehow the fundamentalist Puritan idea of that soldier mentality is still very much intact.
Mm.
Wait, I maybe we're the first generation who can access all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were raised without the internet, which is not
That's
something that the previous, like, after us.
No, Gen Z. Nope. 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 Yeah.
So we really are holding on to these two realities.
Yes.
Like, can you imagine being like a 10-year-old right now with in the midst of an AI boom?
I'm so scared for the youth right now. I mean, I'm
And
so sorry. I'm so scared. Because I'm scared. Like, our
right?
generation is
We
scared of, like,
should
what are we
be.
supposed to do? It's
Yeah.
scary.
So
No. Yeah.
it's kind of emboldening in a way of this,
Yeah.
just hearing us throughout just this conversation.
Mhm.
I remember our last interview, it was so dark outside at this time of the morning, and it has been sunny the whole time,
I'm
or like
saying,
a little bit of light is, and so I'm just noticing the shift in perspective within myself and us for this project, but also as a society, things are shifting. And I
yeah.
feel more grounded than ever that my work in the world really is bringing differing opinions together around a campfire. Because
Yeah.
all we need is the space. I believe people are good. And
Yes.
that was the point I was getting to, is like those places where people can open up tend to be more liberal people, which is
Yeah.
really unfortunate for me because I'm trying to reach the conservatives. But
Oh, no.
conservatives have their thing. They're happy in their container. I know a lot of conservatives that just don't even like to travel.
No.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do we, I would like to reach those folks because I identify with them so well. Like, my heart is there,
Mhm.
but I couldn't stay, we have to grow, and I can't stay in that mindset.
Oh my gosh. I want to just say this really hits home what you just said, because for me, like, so I introduced myself as a work strategist, and for the longest time I didn't know what the heck I'm doing in this work. Like, I'm just like, I see people, they you should be a freelancer, how to optimize the 9 to 5. You should be a portfolio, like, you should this.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I'm not telling anybody to do anything, actually. Like, I
Right.
just I just want to create a space where people can make money, because we all have to make money, that doesn't suck. Like, if they want to make money through their farm, or they do want to do a 9 to 5, but they want to do it in a way that feels good, a remote role. Like, who am I to say you have to be in a cubicle and you have to commit your time and energy? And no, like, so I just want to help people reframe, have a new belief system around work and money in a way that feels sustainable. And I'm like, there's no place for that, because I'm not necessarily liberal in the sense of, like, you know, get the F out of corporate right now. I'm like, but that's not real. We can't all do that, or that's not for everyone. Or, your path is to be an entrepreneur and this is the way to be. No, like, I don't like being an entrepreneur in that way. I don't like feeling, I honor my menstrual cycle. So I'm not always going to be on all the time. And so I'm just like, I'm here for the people who are navigating what I call the messy middle. Like, we don't know who we are. We don't know where we're going. We know that we want to do meaningful, live. We're prioritizing our lives. We're not prioritizing money. That is the through line. And if you are more conservative, or if you are more liberal, that's fine. I mean, I'm not necessarily speaking to a demographic. I'm trying to speak to people who want to live their lives now. Like, we're not waiting until our 70s to retire. And however that means we need to make money, then if that means you make less, but you're more fulfilled, if that means you have 2 different part-time jobs, but it allows you this, and it's for this moment, it's not forever. Like, I'm thinking about a lifestyle centered, life seasons for money versus this is one path. And
Ooh,
that's mhm.
seasons for money. I've been trying to put language to that because I'm in that place with my job right now, actually, of I really needed a season of stability, like salary,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
has it has allowed me to do so much in my life. And
Sure.
in some ways, the ease of just knowing that I can let go of the worry about how I'm going to find it opened up pathways in my mind, and my creativity came back in a weird way. Not a weird
Yes.
way, but an unexpected way. And
Yes.
then over time, the sacrifice that I was making for my mental health just got louder and louder and louder. And I realized now lately, like, it's time, like that.
Yeah.
The it's kind of shifted, like that payoff that's allowed me to settle is
Yeah.
now no longer a settled feeling. It's
100%.
now like a something has to change because the money is no longer worth it.
Right.
And I've been in that position before, and I've looked back on those times and been like, I wish I could have like
Mhm.
sucked it up or something.
Mhm.
But that, like, I say that about leaving a good, my first ever good paying job. I was making more than my husband, the only time that's ever happened. and he was, he shortly after was like made some changes in his life to start making more money. And so I was like,
Mhm.
man, like, but I couldn't stay it. I hated being that stressed out. So when I left it, for years, I thought I kind of shamed myself.
Mm.
But because I left at that point in my life, it allowed me to follow my heart and my passions in a way that led me to this stable spot. And looking back, I was like, I'm so glad I had the guts to listen to my heart then, because the scrappiness and ways of making money that I found doing after that chapter led me to this new chapter of stability. And I am way more aligned in my life than I've ever been with my profession. And
100%.
so I think helping people navigate through that, so that hopefully they can find a place that is
Yeah.
safe and true and honest,
Yeah.
and I mean, as honest as it can be with
Yeah.
yourself, um,
Right. Right.
but a place that you feel at home.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
that's still an elusive thing. That's why I'm dedicating my life to the practice of it. I just
Right.
don't know
Right.
quite what that means.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's always moving. We're allowed to change and move and evolve. And the inner game and outer game of that faith that we lean on, whether that when the faith inside gets a little shaky, that's why you have your systems, your external systems, and your home and your structure and your people and your village. To help
100%.
fortify that inner faith for you too.
100%. 100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It's hard work because like it's hard to trust ourselves, have faith in ourselves
Mhm.
when it's tied to responsibility. Like how can I let go when I feel obligated? This is mandatory. And so it's like there's less playfulness, there's less spaciousness. And so that's why one of my favorite slogans I have is like, I repurpose the corporate ladder. We don't stick
I
to
love
it. It's like, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. We just tweak it. And just knowing that because it doesn't serve, and capital F, like going back to religion didn't serve me in the way that it wanted to serve me, but it still serves me. And like
Hmm.
corporate structures serve, maybe they don't serve me, I'm not its prototype to be a cubicle person, but that doesn't mean I can't find value in it to serve my life, and I can't then be someone of integrity and purpose and prosperity in my own way. So it's just but it's hard because it takes, I think, a lot of vulnerability um and courage and trust, and all of that is lowercase faith of like, I don't know where the money is going to come from all the time. And that's where I'm like, but do I have to be in control of that? Because actually there is no control. So what am I trying to control, and what can I? And then we get into the nuance. So anyways, that's why the lowercase f faith is very special, because then it helps with the bigger stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely. I love that that feels like a good like period on the conversation, I think, is leaving it with that of like,
Mm.
to some degree, humans have to get comfortable with the uncomfortable truth that you might not know like how you're going to sustain yourself in the future.
Yeah.
And to some degree, all of us are in that boat. COVID taught, we should have all learned that in COVID.
Mhm.
Like,
Mm.
but to the same, in that same vein, I think the scarcity mindset around money is also a big conversation piece with both of our work, because
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
that you just hit like my heart with what you said of like,
Oh.
you don't have to know where the money in the future is coming from if you can be smart about your choices and take a leap of faith every now and then within reason. But at some point, even if it feels like a life or death situation, it might not be. It might not be a life or death situation. And accepting the mystery of your own future,
Mhm.
very, very scary sometimes. And maybe that's why, like the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds or whatever have done this work to secure the, oh my gosh, I just popped into my mind. It's like generational wealth, because in real estate, like generational wealth is a big like thing in my mind. It's a big
Yeah.
conversation piece on why you want to build wealth, or because of generational wealth. I overheard someone next to me at a table last weekend say there was two women, and one of them said, my ears were like, oh, they just talked about real estate. I don't know how I heard it or what they were talking about, but one said to the other that she heard from someone else that generational wealth is the closest you can get to immortality. And in that moment, I was like, I disagree. Because as high up on a pedestal as I put generational wealth, in that
Mm.
moment, like, it does not make you immortal, because the statistics around the 1% and the
Mm.
statistics of the turnover of wealth is like
Mhm.
that up. It's millionaires give it to their kids, and then their kids lose it, or their kids lose it, and then
Mhm.
all the self-made millionaires we know now, like they wasn't handed to them. So
No.
generational wealth is not the end all be all, and I might have believed that in the past. I think like prioritizing our lives now, like the now is what you said, and I think
Mm.
that the balance of how you prioritize your life now with maybe your own inner game,
Yep, yep, yep.
with also prioritizing like the goodness of your environment and
Mhm.
supporting the life around you too. Like maybe that's the game. And maybe it is selfish. And I'm just going to say it, like the idea of the wealth of like the Rothschild wealth.
Mm.
Maybe it's not a good example. I don't really know the Rothschilds that well. I just know that they're like crazy wealthy because of the turn of the Industrial Revolution, and it turned some families into like they will just be like
Mhm.
eternally wealthy, and maybe that is the level of immortality that some people are trying to go for. And maybe
Mm.
that's the Epstein like cult thing, like this Babylonian like eating babies. Come on, like you like some degree you're like some level of immortal, like you think you're above what you actually are, and
Mm.
you are not a god, you're a human. And that's maybe, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but the sacred period, but it's all kind of swirling around, and they're like, remember who you are. I just
Yeah.
saw The Lion King in the like the musical recently, and that's what Mufasa says. I just heard it. Like, remember who you are, Simba. Like, and I'm talking about a lion, but like to us, like we're human beings.
Yeah.
We have a capacity. We have a limit. We have a boundary. We have mortality, and we have a responsibility to hold the mystery and the pain and the emotions and all of it in a way that doesn't harm
That's right.
ourselves or others. So if we can figure out that through line for our own lives,
That's
um,
right. That's it.
then maybe like the capital F faith won't be such a big thing to rebel against if we
100%.
anchor ourselves. So that's where I want to end. Sorry for bringing up so much of the Epstein
No,
stuff.
that was
Just
no, you're good.
And
I guess stick around, everyone, for part 2, where we do talk about capital F.
Right.
And we will get into, I mean, meaty conversation. Check out our Spotify. It's on Spotify playlist.
Yeah.
And yeah, check out Sarah on Substack. This whole thing is on Substack, unless you're checking it on Spotify or any other platform. But this is so awesome. So good.
So good. I can't wait for our next conversation. Stay tuned, everyone. Big surprise coming up.
Surprise. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet. I just remembered what she said. Okay. I'll be quiet. Oh my god. All right. We'll talk to you all later.
Bye, everyone.